Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by The Gazette.
Welcome to the Hockey Inside Out show. I'm joined this week by Michael Farber of Sports Illustrated, TSN, NBC.
All right, enough.
I think that's it. Jack Todd and Mike Boone. Mike, you have a feature coming up in Sports Illustrated on PK Subban, in which you touch on the PK phenomenon in Montreal.
This city is in the tank for PK Subban and has been since he walked in here as a rookie, maybe even before at his draft day in Columbus. When he walks over to the table, he's a second rounder now, shakes everybody's hands and says, "You guys made the right choice." We have loved Subban since then. And my question for you guys is, will we see Subban differently now that he is a $9 million a year player, cap hit? He has been basically free of criticism. There have been other whipping boys. Everybody has just bought in entirely to Subban, but now what we see about Subban is it refracted through the prism of his contract.
Yeah, when he has a bad night, he doesn't mess around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He has one where it's right out there for everybody to see. And I think the only difference, he used to have those bad nights too, but the difference now is the contract, and you're expected not to have those nights. Well, they're going to happen anyway, and the heat's going to be worse.
I think unless he begins to totally suck. I mean, his charisma is such in Montreal. It's been a long time since we've had a player with star power like that. There's been a charisma gap since a huge charisma gap.
Yeah. If you look at it that way, he is the illogical successor to all these great heroes in franchise history. Now, why is that? I mean, first of all, he's a different color, he speaks a different language, and he's from Toronto, of all places. And everyone loves him. But why is that? Is it because Montreal is so bereft of heroes that we don't have a baseball team in the city anymore, that there hasn't been a player other than José Theodore for a very short time that captured the imagination? I'm not sure.
I think he has Montreal style, even though he comes from Toronto.
Yeah.
You know,
the clothes, the eyes,
you know, just the out there personality that that Montrealers fall for. Somewhere in there we had Kovalev, but I don't know what to make of him.
During the game against Chicago, there was a delayed penalty call, and Nathan Beaulieu took the puck and circled back and gave it to PK, and it was, you could feel it in the building. You could feel people. It's almost like going back to the Guy Lafleur days, Mike.
He has the ability to lift people out of their expensive seats at the Bell Center, and without consternation or horror. You know, he's able to generate some excitement in the building.
And yet, he's one of these equal opportunity defensemen. At his very worst, he gives both teams a good chance to win.
Now, he also, in 13 games, he has 11 minor penalties. The game against Chicago, Mike Weaver and Brandon Prust were both called for embellishing. The last guys you'd expect to be embellishers. Kerry Fraser was talking last week saying that the Habs are on the referee's list of embellishers, and it's a price I think the team is paying now.
This is the revenge of the Boston Bruins. I really believe that. The Bruins were the team that first spread the message, and the Rangers again last year during the playoffs. These guys are divers and whiners. And the chickens are coming home to roost. I mean, Plekanec has had some moments. Subban has had some moments. You can say, gee, that's a dive. But when these two guys get called, Weaver and Prust, you have to say it's beyond now a phenomenon.
When Weaver gets thrown back and his head hits the ice, and he gets embellishment for it, it's over the line now.
Well, the goal of the marketing department was to turn the Canadiens into the Manchester United of hockey. I think it's gone a bit too far. You know?
Those Canadiens diving team shirts in Boston are probably selling quite.
Can Ronaldo skate?
Now, Andre Markov was interviewed about being partners with Tom Gilbert on defense, and his silence to the answer sort of spoke volumes. It made it seem like he wasn't happy playing with Tom Gilbert. But isn't Tom Gilbert one of these analytics great players, Mike?
Well, he might be, but the non-analytic folks out there, scouts, don't like him quite as much as Marc Bergevin did. I talked to a scout I respect. I said, what's the deal? Because Gilbert wasn't welcome long-term in Edmonton, a team that obviously needed defensemen, didn't last in Minnesota, Florida, teams that needed help on defense. And in a word, they thought Gilbert was discreet, which is not necessarily a good quality for a defenseman. Didn't find
in a philanderer, yes. In a defenseman, not so much.
He's not going to win many one-on-one puck battles, and so that's why he has moved around from team to team. Although you look at him, he's obviously a skilled player.
Mm-hmm. Now Markov, by not, he's got an A on his sweater now, by not really defending Gilbert, I don't know, let's say if he threw him under the bus there, does that say something about the leadership on this team, John?
Well, you can also interpret that as just a message to Gilbert that he needs to get out there and play a little bit better if he's going to get Markov's respect. I don't have a problem with Markov, whatever he does. He's a little weird, but he was weird the first time I talked to him in 1999, and he's never going to change. So,
we're mentioning analytics before. You were telling me a good comment about analytics.
There's a president of an NHL team. He said, "This analytic stuff has been great because the writers used to just torch us." He says, "Now they torch each other. They just keep fighting." So you got the analytics and the non-analytics. We just sit back and we laugh at them both.
So hard to pick a sentimental favorite when two writers are going at it.
Now Michel Therrien is being criticized, obviously, as the team was in a 3-game slump. Dale Weiss on the first line, Mike.
This is Matthew Darche Redux. It's the Darche ages all over again. I don't understand it. You got Seacatch in the press box and Dale Weiss on your top line. It baffles me, really. I don't understand the thinking. Maybe someone can illuminate.
Well, these things are works in progress. I mean, we've seen the defense mixed and matched. We've seen Subban with Emelin and Subban with Markov, and basically with everybody. And we've seen Therrien juggle lines. And the way they're playing right now, I mean, really, at least through the Chicago game, okay, I'm sure it's not a permanent move.
The cathedral in Barcelona is a work in progress. In Montreal, we don't have a lot of time here.
We'll be back after a short break, and we'll talk about the Guy Lapointe retirement ceremony Saturday night of his number 5. Welcome back to the Hockey Inside Out Show. On Saturday night, the Canadiens will retire Guy Lapointe's number 5 at the Bell Centre. Mike, your thoughts about Guy?
Richly earned, but I will point out he didn't finish his career with Montreal, and this happens so often. Larry Robinson didn't, Steve Shutt didn't, Guy Lafleur didn't. Rocket Richard had an acrimonious ending to his career. I'm not sure what it is about this franchise where in very few cases, Jean Beliveau's won. It doesn't end with a gold watch.
Patrick Roy.
Well, there you go.
They bring guys along slowly and they get rid of them badly.
Who should be the next guy to give their number retired if they continue?
Players, you could go back and look at Vezina or something, but to me, the one ceremony that needs to be held would be Scotty Bowman and Toe Blake. A joint recognition. I'm not familiar enough with the history to talk about Dick Irvin, but Blake and Bowman for sure, they have no parallels in coaching in the NHL, and they should go up as a joint act.
I agree. Yeah, get both those names in the rafters, absolutely. For
and
what they
Scotty
did with
Bowman, to me, was the greatest coach. Yeah. Has always said, "Oh, not me, it's Toe Blake."
Now, I don't think Brian Gianta's number will be retired from the Canadiens, but he was a captain of this team. You spoke with him, Michael, about who maybe the next captain could or should be.
In his opinion, in a short order, it should be Brendan Gallagher. I just thought it was kind of a Lilliputian deal, like short guys sticking up for each other. But he thinks after a transition period, it's Gallagher.
As a tall guy, I would go with Gallagher. if you go by leadership on the ice, leading by example, Gallagher. What he does in the room, I can't say.
I don't know why Gianta gets a vote on this. It's not like they didn't ask Pope Benedict about Pope Francis.
It's funny because when I was talking to Michel Therrien in the course of doing the Subban story, he says, certain guys you talk to a lot. He says, Brendan Gallagher, I have to remind myself to talk to him every 3 weeks because he does everything right. So then I'll go over to him, "Hey, Brendan, how you doing?" "Yeah, good, coach." And that's about it.
With that smile he has when he gets cross-checked in front of the net.
Yeah,
probably,
he says, because essentially he does everything right.
Now, Tenorti and Beaulieu are showing just how tough and the growing pains that go into becoming an NHL defenseman. You see one of these guys being PK's future partner.
I do, Tenorti, because he can be the big guy, the at-home guy, and let Subban gamble all over the ice. Gambol.
Which one of the two
Yeah, well,
young
fine.
defensive impressed you, Jack?
Tenorti for me, because I still see Beaulieu doing some moves that make me think he should be wearing number 43, Brisebois' old number, but there's no doubt. I mean, he's the talented puck carrier and all this. I really like Tenorti. I would like to see them both get more ice time because they're not going to get there playing 6 minutes a night or watching from the press box.
I'll be a bit contrarian. I like Beaulieu. I like the skating and I like the offensive ability. And I'm not entirely sold on Tenorti yet. Takes a little bit longer for a big player to develop, but we'll see. But I agree that they absolutely need more ice time. They're being brought along too slowly.
Now, Yuri Sikac, a healthy scratch for 7 games in a row. Is he as good as Habs fans think he is? Should he be on the ice?
Well, they're watching him in the exhibition season, and there are lots of exhibition all-stars. I would like to see him there because clearly he is a more skilled winger than Dale Weiss.
Yeah, I would too. He's not going to develop up there, but at the same time, all the people that are clamoring for him would think he's the solution to this mess. The Calgary and Chicago games don't change if Yuri Sikac is on the ice.
Mm-hmm. They got to give him Dale Weiss's number so we can have Sikac 22.
Now, Michel Therrien has put Andrei Markov and PK Subban back together. It didn't look too good against Chicago. Andrei Markov made Mike Komisarek look like an all-star. Is this a case of trying to make PK look a little better with the help of Andrei?
No, it's some coach looking for something. And, you know, Markov is probably the guy who gets other people going. Maybe even Tom Gilbert, although that was his response to Tom Gilbert was very odd. You know, what do you think of playing with Gilbert? You got that Russian smile. You know, that was passive, meet aggressive.
What do you think of moving back to Moscow?
Now, with Michel Therrien, now with PK having that 8-year contract, has he lost a bit of the hammer maybe he had over PK? Are we going to see him be able to bench PK the way he used to?
It might be tough. I know one thing. I know you rarely get unanimity in the Canadiens organization. You really heard it last year leading up to these contract talks. There was a lot of negative things about PK going around. I think they were pretty disappointed with what they had to settle for, and now what does the coach do with him?
Well, he still has the hammer because he has the ice time, and that's the one hammer that all coaches
It's the only
have.
hammer
Exactly.
these days.
Now, the power play has been brutal. Just brutal. What, if you're Michel Therrien, what do you do to try and fix this, Michael?
I blame an assistant coach. This one's not on me. I mean, there are different ways to run a power play. The Canadian has been point-centric for a long time with the big shot from the point from Sheldon Surrey, Mark Streit, Marc-Andre Bergeron. There's a name you didn't expect to hear on Hockey Inside Out. You didn't, Marc-Andre Bergeron. So there are ways to do that. Maybe you run it off the half wall, but it's not working when you're running it off the point.
Very static right now.
Scoring's been a problem for this team forever, it seems. You know, it's Max Pacioretty is the only consistent goal scorer, and if he's not scoring, he's not doing much.
I think net presence continues to be an issue when you watch what Andrew Shaw does for the Blackhawks. Nobody is, you know, Gallagher tries, but come on.
He's a
little effusion, you know.
Need that bigger body.
I like that.
It's a very literate show today, Michael. I'm doing my best.
Your biggest concern if you're Michel Therrien going forward?
I think right now it's the way they compete, because there were a couple of games at home. Chicago, you might expect to get spanked, even though that was 3 and 4 nights for the Blackhawks. But when Calgary comes in and outworks you, that becomes an issue.
And thank you for not saying compete level.
No.
I heard it about 4 times last night and I was ready to scream.
You talk about compete level, that game against Chicago, Jonathan Toews. Is there a player in the NHL with a higher compete level than that? He looked just fantastic.
Well, there was a whole debate on who's the best player in the NHL, and Jonathan Toews was the flavor of the month. And I love Toews. I think we all have a man crush on Jonathan Toews, and he's great over 200 feet. But Sidney Crosby is the best player in the game, whether you like him or not.
Well, I still like Ovechkin.
You're weird.
That's weird. That's it for another episode of Hockey Inside Out. We'll be back next week.